Welcome to this afternoon's panel. We're here to talk about what's the future of multi-platform selling. We have a great panel with us today. And if there were 7 people on the stage that you could get to talk about this topic, they're on the stage today. We're going to leave some time for questions after the panel. We want this to be interactive. I have some questions for the panel, but I want to leave a good 10 minutes for the audience. And write them down, speak up, don't be bashful when we get there. So I'm not going to read bios or things like that. I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves. And Peter, if we can start with you on the end.
Sure. Peter Kelly, CEO of OpenLane, a part of ADESA Group.
Jim Yates, CEO at Alliance Inspection Management, normally referred to as AIM.
Greg Thibault with Avis Budget Group. I'm in charge of remarketing.
Greg Lubrani with Liquid Motors.
Steve Groene, Ford Rental and Remarketing, Sales Planning Manager.
Nick Peluso, Manheim.
Joe George is a lot better looking, I'll tell you.
Wow.
Lucky guy.
Anyway, before I start with some questions for the panel, we had IARA roundtable on the topic, and I think it would be good if I just gave a couple of lines about what is multi-platform selling at a very high level, because I think there was a lot of questions on it the other day. And it's really nothing more than a centralized hub where you can sell online in multiple platforms at the same time, simultaneously. It doesn't have to be simultaneous, but that's the basic idea. Okay, so it's not anything to do with, other items like condition reports, pictures, things of that nature. Multi-platform selling is something that's the buzzword right now. It's something the industry is looking to move forward. So we have all the answers on that with our panel. Right, guys?
Yeah.
Greg, I'm going to start with you. And if you would just take a couple of minutes and expand on my comments of actually what multi-platform selling is and talk a little bit about the evolution of the product.
Sure. Multi-platform selling is actually not a new concept to this industry. Liquid Motors was founded in 2005 and began utilizing multi-platform selling on the retail side of the business. So a retail car dealer takes his inventory and passes it and pushes it to AutoTrader, Cars.com, eBay Motors, Craigslist to get as much maximum exposure as they can. They want as many eyeballs on that car as humanly possible to be able to sell that vehicle in a retail environment. About 18 months ago, we were approached and asked if we could take that same concept and idea of taking a vehicle and pushing it to multiple websites and apply that on the wholesale side. So we built the technology to take a vehicle, digital pictures, vehicle information, condition reports, and push it out to ADESA.com, OVE, and Smart Auction. So the technology has been around for a while. It's not new. It can be pushed out and be on the sites simultaneously and live on all 3 environments. Our system's built where if a bid comes in and meets reserve on one of the systems, that we pull it off of the other 2 sale channels to avoid any double sales. But it doesn't necessarily need to be on all 3 environments at one time. The technology is built where the consignor controls where the car goes. So if today I want to push the car out to Smart Auction, tomorrow I want to push the car out to OVE, and the third day I want to push it out to ADESA, there's the flexibility in the system to do that. Or if I want to push all my Honda product to ADESA.com, I want to push all my General Motors products to Smart Auction, there's flexibility in the system that allows the consignors to do that. So it's not a new concept. It's something that's been around. It's been around on the retail side for a very long time, and it's been around on the wholesale side now as the grandfather of multi-channel selling, you've been doing it for 8 to 10 years now?
Yes. Yeah, Joe George couldn't be here today. Nick Peluso sitting in for him on a conference call the other day. Joe called me the grandfather of it. So I actually plan to get him back today, and I think that's why he's got the flu. But anyway, Jim, there are some people in the conversations we've had that think that multi-platform selling is actually a marketplace. Is that true?
No, I don't think anybody views it as a marketplace. Really what it is in our mind, it's utilizing the existing marketplaces to the fullest extent. So when we think of multi-platform selling, we think there are 4 elements to it. Our industry is very fortunate. We've got very robust, very strong marketplaces. Greg mentioned 3 of them. I think that those 3 are the strongest, but they're very viable, they're trusted, they do what needs to be done, which is trading funds, making sure titles are correct. But connecting those marketplaces together requires technology, and technology is the second element. That technology is pretty complex. As you can imagine, all the consignors have different interests and different rules that they would like to follow, and of course the marketplaces are all uniquely designed. We believe strongly that the third element is a condition report of some kind. You can argue whether that needs to be third party or self-inspect, but to some extent a condition report is a catalyst for upstream marketplaces, and they really don't work very well without them. And we also believe, I think maybe Greg mentioned it, there needs to be an agnostic hub of some sort that is trusted, that doesn't have an interest in the value of the vehicle and or the costs involved in doing it. So we believe that an agnostic system has to be in place to make people comfortable and feel like the process will be a trusted process.
Thank you. Greg Thibault, on the consignor side, you're one of the early adopters of multi-channel selling. So what led you to it, and how have your results been so far?
Our issue at Avis Budget was an inventory management problem. With multiple platforms that we're selling in, there was no way for us to manage the cars that were being listed on any given day. So we'd have 3 separate platforms all running separately with a X number of cars on each platform. Managing those 3 sites as one was impossible to do. So the multi-platform integration that we contracted with AIM to do puts all 3 sites together at one time. So if we had 100 cars on 3 different sites, now we have 300 cars on one site that all dealers have access to on any given day. So what they did was sew together the sites that we had out there running independently. Now they run all together. And if the car gets sold, it falls off the other 2 sites. And we are now just trying to find out what is the best way for us to find the right inventory to keep up on the sites on any given day, because now we're starting to see the success of the multiple platform process that's starting to sell a lot more cars.
Thank you. Steve, as a consignor who hasn't adopted it yet, what do you see as the barriers to adoption for multi-platform selling?
Well, I certainly can't speak for all consignors, as the needs and target buyers differ between consignors. And as an OEM captive finance, our target buyer is really our franchise dealer. Today we have 2 multi-platform systems that utilize our 2 private label websites that offer vehicles sequentially, not simultaneously, to our dealers. This concentrates our offerings and makes it easy for our dealers to find our product offering. On the open sale side, I think some important things are, though, the central hub. What does the central hub look like? Standardized condition reports, maybe a standardized condition report grading system, and certainly a robust real-time communications between all the sites and the central hub. And then who will handle the transaction for cars at auction or for upstream cars? Who handles the arbitration? And lastly, are there any potential fair trade or other legal issues that we need to be concerned about?
I'm going to deviate from the questions. Anybody on the panel want to answer some of Steve's questions? No? Okay.
I'm not sure I'm going to answer any of his questions, but I think the questions that he's posed are right at the heart of the things that are being debated, and right at the heart of some of the things the IARA is trying to address right now and the NAAA is trying to address. So I think those are the fundamental things that need to be addressed before we can actually move forward with a consistent process for multi-selling platforms. If I can for a moment, I want to come back also to your first question that you asked about when the early part of this, or when did it get started? Because I agree with Greg when he says, in the time frame. But I don't think anybody should make any mistake. This has been going on for a long time. I mean, it just hasn't been automated. I mean, most everybody can probably remember a car being listed on multiple sites many years ago, 10 plus years ago. It just wasn't automated. I mean, so from my perspective, to your very first question, which I know you didn't ask me, was this multi-platform, what we're really talking about now, and the buzz about it, is how we're automating and making it more efficient versus really selling on multi-platforms. One person's view.
Yep, agreed. I got a signal from our sound guy. We all need to speak closer to the microphones. Nick, my next question was for you. Well, it's for Joe. But from the auction perspective, what do you think the value proposition is for the sellers and for the buyers, looking at from the auction view?
Well, from the auction view, I mean, you know, one of our main goals is being a remarketing company, an auction company, is to provide value to the seller and to the buyer. So when you think about the seller's perspective, you know, our goal is to get the most amount of money for the car. So by putting a car up in multiple platforms, the desire and the hope is to draw more eyeballs, increasing retention. From a seller's perspective, from a buyer's perspective, I'm sorry, is giving them access to the most amount of vehicles. I mean, when you think about, you know, human behavior is going to dictate, your own personal behavior is going to dictate which sites you go to, where you have your preference from. So because you have a preference for one particular site, I don't think that should impede your ability to go see certain types of vehicles. So it's access to vehicles and it's about retention. So I think both a buyer and a seller win, and that's, at the end of the day, that's our ultimate goal.
Okay, thank you. Peter, since OpenLane was one of the first platforms to connect to a hub that had multi-channel selling, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences over the time and what you see the benefits and the complexities are?
Sure. I think Nick touched on some of the benefits just there, and I think we'd kind of see it the same way. I think the primary benefit would appear to accrue to the seller. You know, get the car out there in front of the most buyers possible. You know, maximize the exposure. So I think that's that's reflected in the fact that the primary customer grouping that's advocating for more of this are sellers. Now there are some benefits to buyers too. If you go to a site, you see more cars. So that's clearly a benefit. And as Nick alluded to, there are some benefits to auctions too. We were one of the auctions participating for part of Greg's business, right? Part of the Avis Budget business. We get a subset of their vehicles, and today we get all of their vehicles, as do our competitors. But in that process, we've been able to sell more of Avis's cars and grow our relationship with that customer. So clearly that's a benefit to us too. But there are some complexities, and I think Steve hit on, frankly, just about all of them. And I think the complexities really arise in the where do we go from here, which I know is a topic you want to cover, Bob. I do think the user experience, the buyer experience, is suboptimal. The idea that the first bid takes the car down off the other venues, that kind of negates, a large part of the benefit of having the maximum exposure if the very first bid on the first site takes it down off the other sites. So that's a limitation for sure. But overcoming that and getting to a situation where you can truly run an auction on multiple platforms and keep them all current, there's a lot of complexities around that. There's a lot of complexity. How is that auction managed? Frankly, managing those auctions are at the heart of the businesses that many of us represent here. There's user authentication questions. There's questions around if the car is at a facility A but sells on a platform of a competitor, how is that transaction handled? And these are the things that we're sort of working through. So I think we've got an automated solution, as Nick alluded to, out there. It's still, I'd say, in the grand scheme of things, fairly basic. And there's a lot of complexities of how do you really take that to the next level. So that's some of the stuff that I think we're working hard on.
Okay, thank you. Greg, as one of the adopters, what kind of challenges have you encountered along the way? And what's been the learning curve for you in using a multi-platform environment?
Well, the learning curve for us is finding the sweet spot inventory levels that we need to keep on any given day, and also talking to our platform providers about getting more dealer adoption. I'm not sure that the dealers really are still 100% trusting of the condition reports that they see out there today because there's such a mix mash of them, and just getting consistency from site to site. And we are in the rental car business as well, so getting the correct inventory on any given day is a real challenge for us. but we have to be consistent in what we offer. Dealers are going to expect a certain inventory level that they see on any given day, and our challenge is to maintain that inventory level. The process, it works. We know it works, and we're gaining new sales every single day of the week, and our volume is starting to have a meaningful impact on the number of sales that we do on any given day or week or month. And we have to report those numbers to Wall Street, so it's really important.
Greg, can you tell us a little bit about your target audience and who you think from either a consignor or dealer perspective will benefit the most from multi-platform selling?
So as I said, Liquid Motors started in 2005 working with retail dealers and taking their inventory and pushing it to eBay, Craigslist, AutoTrader. We take data feeds from their DMS systems, lot service companies. They can manually input cars. So our main target audience are the dealers. Dealers are doing this today. They're manually listing cars on all three sites. We bring in efficiency to them and help them manage that process and do it more efficient, quicker, get their cars to market faster. All of the products that we've developed have been developed to be dealer-centric products. So we developed a product called Wholesale Max, and basically what that does is auto launches the inventory for the dealer when it reaches a certain age, and it prices the car based on some parameters that they set at the beginning. And then we took it to the independent auctions, because the independent auctions are going out and they're doing the same process that the dealers are doing, and they're managing that process for their dealer bodies. So those are the two main target audiences that we have today. Anybody can use the system. It's flexible to take inventory feeds from anybody, any source. Today we're taking approximately 600 different types of data feeds in, and we're pushing out to 400 different types of sources, the majority of those being retail sources. But that's our main target audience, are dealers and independent auctions.
Jim, is there any difference in your target audience or your approach to multi-platform selling?
Well, our origin is more oriented toward wholesale as opposed to Greg's, which is, I think, his is rooted in the retail environment. Our core business has been over the years the inspection business, and we do a lot of inspection work for major consigners. In fact, I think everybody except Greg up here has, at one time or another, has been a customer of ours. So we think about this multi-platform concept being very appealing to everybody who has a portfolio, who is trying to make sure that they maximize the value of the portfolio and get as many potential buyers as possible looking at their products. Ours is also rooted in a condition report, which is a little different than data, pushing data. So we're a little different, but I think similar in a sense that it's a technology instrument that is trying to connect buyers and sellers together in a better way.
Okay, thanks. Now, Peter, now we get into the fun part, why everybody's in the room and what they want to hear. So I'm going to start this with you. So where do we go from here? And is cross-bidding across all these platforms, really possible in the near future?
So in terms of understanding what's meant by cross-bidding, if we...
Cross-bidding is...
keeping the auction.
The auction going, no matter what platform a buyer...
Exactly. So I just want to as long as just to understand the definition,
Sure.
that it's running the auction visible on all platforms for the duration without it going dark. So clearly that doesn't exist yet today. I guess what I'd say, Bob, is I think it's a possibility, but it's not straightforward. If all the cars are up at click and buy, it's a lot easier, right? But once you're trying to keep an auction current on lots of different platforms, it does invite a lot of complexities into the equation. That said, I think there are technical solutions that could exist. I do think that the auctioning of cars is again, as I said, at the heart of businesses like ADESA and Manheim and other auction companies and Smart Auction. So there's a lot of investment, and our systems, while they're comparable, they're not identical. So there's a need to kind of work together as an industry to figure out some of these items. And what I can say is there's a lot of dialogue that has taken place, and I think good progress being made, but I don't think we're there yet with a solution that can say, hey, there will be a cross-bidding solution that will be live by, date X. But I think we all recognize the strength of our customers' desire for solutions like these. So, we're in business to serve our customers, so we're listening hard to that, and we're working hard together to try and figure it out.
Okay? So it won't be next week?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
No, it won't be next week.
Just want to make sure.
Bob, can I touch on that for 1 second?
Sure.
I'm going to talk from my personal opinion right now. I think cross-bidding is a very slippery slope. I think it's fantastic for the consigners because it ultimately brings a higher return on your investment. I think it's a slippery slope from a buyer perspective. From a technology perspective, we can have that technology ready to market in 6 months. We already have the schematics built. And going back to Jim's earlier point, if it's done, I think it needs to be done with an agnostic company that keeps that bidding process in a safe haven.
Sure. So let me follow up with you. You said you thought it was a slippery slope for the buyers. Why is cross-bidding a slippery slope for the buyers? They're bidding competitively. That's the nature of bidding in the auction business, whether it's in-lane versus somebody else in-lane versus somebody in simulcast.
I think it opens up opportunities for price fixing, price changing, as far as buy fees go. The first to drop their buy fee can win the battle. Buyers like going to specific sites because they feel it's their niche, and now you take that piece away because now the bids are being shared everywhere. So I think it's a slippery slope, and I think it's something that needs to be looked at. I think the industry needs to look at other industries that did similar things, like the travel industry several years ago with the Sabre reservation systems, and take a look at some of the things that happen in other industries, and then make a decision based on that, based on findings.
Okay. So can I just follow up that your concern is really more for the different platforms and the slippery slope than it is actually for the buyers who are just out there bidding?
Potentially.
Okay, thank you. Nick, let me jump to you. Beyond just cross-bidding, and that's the one big topic everybody talks about, but let's look beyond that. Do you think there's the real possibility, if we move to a next level with multi-platform selling, that it will include features like offer, counter-offer, chat functionality with the buyers? Will other non-traditional platforms be included, like either salvage or international or even private label platforms besides just the basic auction platforms?
Good question. So I'm going to first come back to the cross-bidding and where our position is. We strongly believe in the need for cross-bidding. We believe it's the only way for a fair marketplace. To your other question about other features, chat features, private networks, and so forth, I think absolutely yes. I think that they're just functions that will grow out of it. I don't really think we know yet what will come out of it, but when you look at the evolution of any type of these technologies out there, they all end up being something a little different than they started with. So whether they're private network, chat rooms, social networks that come out of it, I think they're all possible. But I think, as an industry and an organization, we need to get going and quit talking about it.
Thank you. Steve, as a consignor, there's lots of things that you probably want to see in multi-platform selling. So besides just cross-selling, what are the most important features to you? Would they be things like, customized, consignor business rules, things like that, or what will get you over the hump to get past the barriers and adopt it?
Well, as a consignor who doesn't currently use the simultaneous posting, I'm speculating a little bit, but I think for us it would be important to control what portion of our inventory is offered to all buyers and what portion we target to our Ford and Lincoln dealerships. I think that'd be one of the very important things for us.
Okay, thank you. So far, on the panel today, we agreed that we would not do what a lot of panels do and ask one question and have 6 different guys answer it. So we tried to keep all the questions individual. My next 3 questions, I'm going to ask 2 panelists each to answer them. So my first question is going to be for Peter and Nick, and I'm going to ask Peter to go first. And what I want to know is, what are your thoughts on the cooperative auction industry solution? And you sort of answered this already, but realistically, best guess, I know you can't commit to anything, how far in the future are we talking about?
Bob, I'm definitely going to answer that question. Can I comment just on a couple of the other points? Greg raised some points, and some of which I agree with. I think the question on, is there an industry that's really made this happen? Implemented, cross-bidding in an auction format among competitors. I can't think of any. So I'm just making the point that it's a hard problem to solve, so that's why it's taken a little bit of time to try and solve it. Okay?
Well, can I give you one example? Because in our roundtable, sort of a similar thing came up, and Steve Houston, I think it was Steve, gave the example in the real estate business where every real estate company had listings. And eventually they went to multi-platform listings,
right,
and they couldn't conceive in the beginning that,
right,
hey, I got this listing and I'm going to share it with everybody else.
Right.
And now they can't conceive they would do it any other way.
Right. No, understood. Again, I guess the point I'm making, Bob, is more of an auction format and trying to keep an auction current across different systems. So
gotcha. That's
more of a listing site and a posting mechanism. And I think the Sabre system is kind of like that as well. I think our view is that for this to work, we have to do this at an industry level. And I think working through the industry organizations that exist, the NAAA, AASC, those types of entities where in the past we have collaborated to put technologies in place that benefit our customers, that offers perhaps the greatest chance of success. And that's kind of an area that we're certainly very focused on, at least in terms of our current discussions. I guess in terms of those discussions, I do feel a lot of progress has been made. I think everybody is approaching it in a very constructive way and trying to get to a solution. I think we're a lot closer than we were. And those discussions are continuing. And, I'm very hopeful that we can get sort of over that hump and get something that's workable, for our customers and our partners out there. So I think what I'd say is we listen hard to our customers, and we're actively engaged in those discussions, and I think making good progress. But it's a complicated subject, and again, even on the panel you hear differences of views here. So we've got to work through some of those details, like how does bidding work? How do we authenticate users? How do economics flow, transaction settlement if it's on one person's venue and selling on another person's website, and all that sort of stuff. It's not simple, and that's the sort of level of complexity we're in trying to figure out.
Okay, thanks. Nick, would you follow up on the same question?
Yeah, I obviously agree with a lot of things Peter said. I think it's sooner than later, and what I mean by that, it's just what we want to go to market with first. Yeah, cross-platform bidding, very important. Does it need to be there day one? So part of it is, how big a bite do we want to take day one? I think it would be important to get the platform out there and see what's important to both buyers and sellers and let it evolve. Focus groups up here talk about, yes, this is important or that's important. I'm not sure we really know yet what's important. I'm not sure there's enough research been done on deciding what's important. My concern is if we don't do something soon, we ain't going to have to worry about it. Somebody else is going to do it. So it's, that's part of the concern or the angst about continuing to wait to do something. So my take is sooner than later, real soon. I don't necessarily know, like I was saying, that we have to go to market with all the bells and whistles day one. Like I said, I think those things will evolve. I think we've been very good at building things that people don't use at the end of the day. So let's just get out there with the basic platform and find out what's important afterwards.
Well, and I'm just going to interject. The platform exists. The technology is already out there.
So Greg, this comes into my next question. And this question is for Jim and Greg. I was going to ask Jim to go first, but my question is, are independent technology companies, able and ready to take it to the next generation of multi-platform selling, with or without the auctions? And I know you answered that a little bit, but yeah. start with you.
I'll go back. If we don't solve some of these issues internally, then somebody else is going to fill the void. I think the auto industry is huge. It's strong. We've got strong marketplaces. We've got buyers and sellers that understand the business. And to continue to struggle and not make some progress would probably be a mistake, because I think the industry is so big that a technology firm will jump in and try to solve it for us if we don't solve it ourselves. Google came out, they're getting back into the business, or they're entering the car business. The threat of eBay, the threat of Google, the threat of those kinds of technology companies trying to come in and take a piece of our industry, I think, is a real threat.
Greg?
So here's what I'll say is the technology exists. Liquid Motors is not a marketplace. We do not want to be a marketplace. We are a data distribution and vehicle merchandising company. We take data in and we push data out. And we want to do it with the marketplaces, not against the marketplaces. We're not out trying to build a marketplace. We want to take data in from dealers, independent auctions, whoever else has data that they want to send to us, and we want to push it and make it efficient for them to be able to do it. So the technology exists today.
Okay, thank you. And my last question for the panel before we open up to the audience will be for Steve and Greg. And it sort of goes to the theme of what we've just been talking about. As consigners, and Steve, I'll ask you to answer first, do you really care who takes it to the next level? Or are you just concerned with who gets there first and who has the best product?
Well, I think as a consigner, and speaking on maybe behalf of consigners who have a large piece of their inventory at the physical auction locations, this does seem like, to me, that it warrants an industry solution. I think in general, consigners are looking for a system that really maximizes sale prices, treats the buyers fairly, and maintains competition, even while developing a system in cooperation that advances multi-platform selling.
And Greg, you get last word.
Oh, beautiful. I think for us it's just about making sure we find the marketplace that keeps the dealers buying cars and has consistent pricing, and where we find our inventory sweet spot in relation to what we offer on any given day. Today we're only offering our best cars upstream to try to develop a brand and to get dealers to buy with confidence with good quality condition reports as well. At what point do we take it, and the pressure on our company is to keep selling in alternative channels, which we're working hard for, but at what point do we take every car that we have in our fleet and push them upstream first? And that's a decision we have to make, and we have to have a robust enough partnership and dealer adaptation to be able to offer that kind of volume.
Thank you, Greg. So I want to thank our panel. Great job, guys. I hope you all got the information that you wanted to keep the conversation going.